How do you follow the greatest car ever built? Ferrari didn't just have a tough act to follow after the 250 GTO. They had the impossible. The GTO had become a weapon on wheels, a collector's dream, a rolling trophy case. It was loud, brutal, and everywhere it went, it won. So when Ferrari pulled the cover off the 275 GTB in 1964, people weren't sure what to think. It was quieter, sleeker. It didn't roar, it purred, and instead of shouting about speed, it whispered sophistication. But here's the thing. The 275 GTB didn't care about living in the GTO's shadow. Because it wasn't chasing hype, it was chasing balance. This was the first Ferrari road car with independent rear suspension. The first with a rear-mounted transaxle, and one of the last with a Colombo V12 that could make you grin in every gear. The 275s didn't try to outshine the GTO. It did something even cooler. It evolved. And in doing so, it might have just become the most underrated Ferrari ever built. But to understand how we got here, we need to look at what Ferrari was really trying to build after the GTO stepped off the stage. By the time the 250 GTO bowed out in 1964, Ferrari had done it. 3 GT World titles, a wall of trophies, a legacy that couldn't be touched. But inside Maranello, things were shifting. GT racing was losing steam. The action was moving to prototypes. Ferrari's future wasn't just about race wins, it was about building cars for the road that still felt like they belonged on the track. So the 275 wasn't a direct replacement for the GTO. It wasn't built to destroy competition. It was built to do something harder, make Ferrari road cars feel like real Ferraris again. At the time, the 250 GT Lusso was beautiful, but soft. The GTO was fast, but raw. What Ferrari needed now was a machine that felt like both, one you could race or just drive across Italy for fun. The 275 GTB was going to bridge that gap. Not with flash, but with engineering. It would be faster than the Lusso, more refined than the GTO, and it would quietly set the blueprint for every front-engined V12 Ferrari that came next. But what Ferrari put under the skin of this car, no one saw coming. The GTB wasn't built to impress you at a glance, but to impress you every time you drove it. And for Ferrari, that meant doing things they'd never done before. Underneath its flowing Pininfarina body was something revolutionary: Ferrari's first road car with independent rear suspension. Most front-engine sports cars of the time still used solid rear axles. Not the GTB. It rode on a setup borrowed from racing, giving it better grip, sharper balance, and smoother control, even on rough roads. Then came the second shocker: a rear-mounted 5-speed transaxle. Ferrari moved the transmission to the back, connected to the rear axle by a torque tube. Why? Better weight distribution, less nosedive, more poise in the corners. At its heart was the classic Colombo 12-cylinder, now 3.3 liters, making about 280 horsepower in standard trim. Smooth, eager, and full of that high-revving magic Ferrari was known for. All this wrapped in a hand-formed aluminum body built by Scaglietti. Long nose, short tail. Just enough aggression to let you know it's not messing around. And for once, Ferrari gave them a car that felt just as good cruising at 60 as it did ripping through curves at 120. And just when it seemed like Ferrari had nailed the formula, they made it even better. In 1966, Ferrari quietly flipped the switch. The 275 GTB had already earned respect, but Ferrari wanted more. So they went back to the V12 and gave it something wild. 4 camshafts. This was a full transformation. The new engine, nicknamed the Tipo 226, was still a 3.3-liter Colombo 12-cylinder. But now it revved harder, breathed deeper, and made over 300 horsepower. It didn't just sound sharper, it felt more alive. Suddenly, the 275 wasn't just a luxury tourer, it had teeth. To keep up with the power, Ferrari added a stronger chassis, improved cooling, and made minor styling changes. The hood gained a subtle bulge. The lines grew leaner. The car looked like it had finally caught up with its own attitude. And behind the wheel? The GTB/4 was magic. It pulled smooth in every gear, stayed balanced at speed, and wrapped it all in that unmistakable Ferrari soundtrack. It wasn't built to destroy lap records. It was built to make every road feel like it mattered. By now, the 275s had found its rhythm. But in typical Ferrari fashion, they weren't done experimenting. Because a few lucky GTBs? They were hiding something under the surface. And those cars were built to do one thing: race. Most 275s were road cars, fast, elegant, refined. But a few were built different. They looked similar on the outside. Same long nose, same short tail. But underneath, it was all race. Ferrari built a handful of 275 GTB-Cs. C for Competizione. These were the track versions. The real deal. The bodies were made of ultralight aluminum, hand-beaten and paper-thin. The glass was thinner, too. Even the paint was lighter. Every ounce shaved was another tenth gained. Under the hood, a dry-sump Colombo V12, race-tuned to deliver over 320 horsepower. It ran with Webers, revved like a banshee, and sounded like it was hunting something. The GTB-Cs also had a revised torque tube, reinforced chassis, and centerlock racing wheels. These were built to handle heat, punishment, and hours of flat-out racing. They took on Le Mans, Sebring, the Nürburgring, and held their own. No, they didn't replace the GTO's legacy. But they didn't have to. Because these weren't built for glory. They were built to survive. The 275 GTB had gone from tourer to terror, and it proved Ferrari didn't forget how to fight. But while racers chased trophies, collectors were about to do something far more dangerous. For years, the 275 GTB lived in the GTO's shadow. It was the next Ferrari, the softer one, the calmer one. And in a world obsessed with lap times and racing bloodlines, calm didn't sell. But something changed. Collectors started to pay attention, not just to what the 275 was, but to what it wasn't. It wasn't as flashy as a GTO. It wasn't as temperamental as a Daytona. And it wasn't built for the spotlight. Instead, the 275s offered something rare: balance. It had racing roots, but road manners. It had gorgeous styling, but didn't scream for attention. And it had just enough rarity to make it matter. Only around 450 GTB4s were made. Even fewer GTB-Cs. And those early short-nose versions? Some of the rarest of all. As values soared for GTOs and Testarossas, the 275 began creeping up behind them. Quietly, smoothly, unshakably. Today, even a standard GTB4 can fetch $3 to $5 million. A rare alloy-bodied competition car? Over $20 million. Not bad for the car that once played second fiddle. Turns out, the 275 wasn't the sequel to the GTO. It was the grown-up version, the one that didn't need to shout to prove it belonged. And in the world of Ferraris, that kind of confidence is priceless. The Ferrari 275 GTB didn't set out to be a legend. It didn't win every race. It didn't break records. And it didn't wear the crown like the GTO. But it did something harder. It lasted. It became the bridge between two worlds, between Ferrari's wild, bare-knuckle past and its elegant, road-focused future. It was the first Ferrari that made going fast feel easy. The first to handle like a dream at high speeds and low. The first to prove that luxury and performance didn't have to fight each other. Ask any Ferrari purist today, and they'll tell you, the 275 GTB is one of the greats. It's the car Enzo himself was proud of, the one that quietly rewrote Ferrari's blueprint without trying to be the star. And now, decades later, it sits where it always deserved to be. Not in the GTO's shadow, but in its own spotlight. It was the follow-up nobody asked for, and the Ferrari everyone came to respect. The 275 GTB didn't ask for the spotlight. It just drove better, felt smoother, and aged like the classic it was always meant to be. This one? It was built for the long road, the fast lane, and the kind of drivers who knew the difference. If you enjoyed this story, hit the subscribe button, because we're just getting started with the greatest machines ever made. And hey, if you want to understand what came before the 275, the wild one that set the whole standard, click right here to see the story of the Ferrari 250 GTO, the car you didn't buy, unless Enzo let you.